Some farewells do not happen at the funeral. They happen years later, on a quiet night. When life seems to have moved on, and the pain seems to have softened, you wake, you work, you speak, you smile. You tell yourself that time has done its work. And then, one night, the person you lost returns in a dream. Not with thunder, not with miracles. They simply appear, as if they had never left. This is the story of Su Shi, one of China's greatest poets. And the night he dreamed of his wife, 10 years after her death. When he awoke, he wrote one of the most heartbreaking lines in Chinese literature. 10 years, the living and the dead are parted by endless distance. I do not try to remember, yet I cannot forget. In his youth, Su Shi was brilliant, spirited, and full of ambition. He was gifted with words, sharp in thought, and born for a larger life. His wife, Wang Fu, was very different. She was not loud. She did not stand at the center of attention. She was quiet, intelligent, and gentle. It is said that when Su Shi spoke with guests, Wang Fu would listen from behind the screen. After the guests had gone, she would quietly tell him what she thought. This person is sincere. That one cannot be fully trusted. Again and again, she was right. She understood people, and more than that, she understood him. She was not the kind of love that burns like fire. She was the kind that glows like a lamp in the evening. Soft, steady, and always there. To Su Shi, she was not only his wife. She was the person who truly knew him before the world did. But no life remains untouched by separation. As Su Shi entered official life, his path grew wider and his burdens grew heavier. He traveled, he worked, he faced the demands of the world. In ancient times, distance was cruel. There were no phone calls, no instant messages, no easy return. A letter could take weeks, a reunion might take months. And every farewell carried the weight of uncertainty. Wang Fu stood behind him through those early years. She saw his confidence, but also his tiredness. She saw his talent, but also the fragility beneath it. She was his home. And perhaps that is why her loss would one day become so unbearable. Wang Fu was only 27 by the traditional count when she left this world. And with her death, something in Su Shi's life fell into silence. The cruelest part of death is not only that a person is gone, it is that all the ordinary things remain. The room remains, the window remains, the table remains. But the person who gave warmth to those things is no longer there. You return home, and no one asks if you are tired. You begin to speak, and then remember, there is no one there to hear it. Su Shi would go on to live a remarkable life. He would write immortal poetry and face exile, hardship, and loneliness. To the world, he became a symbol of resilience and wisdom. But grief does not disappear just because a person becomes stronger. Sometimes, it simply goes deeper. "10 years had not only taken her from him, taken something from him as well." The young poet she had once known, full of light, full of fire, was no longer the man who walked the roads of exile. Dust had settled on his face, frost had crept into his hair. And if they were ever to meet again, he wondered, would she even recognize the man he had become? 10 years passed. "10 years can change a face, a city, a destiny. They can teach a person how to continue living. But time does not erase love. It only teaches love how to hide." That is why Su Shi wrote, "I do not try to remember, yet I cannot forget." Not because he deliberately held on to sorrow, but because some people become part of the soul. And once they do, they are never truly absent. One night, on the 20th day of the first lunar month, Su Shi had a dream. In that dream, he saw Wang Fu again. The scene was not grand. There were no gods descending from the sky. No heavenly music, no supernatural spectacle. He simply saw her sitting by a small window, quietly dressing her hair. By the small window, she was dressing her hair. It was an ordinary image. And that is exactly why it was devastating. Because love is rarely remembered through grand events. It is remembered through the smallest things. A familiar posture, a quiet morning, the way someone sat by the light. There she was, just as she had once been. And Su Shi looked at her. Perhaps he had 1,000 things he wanted to say. About the years that had passed, about the roads he had traveled, about the loneliness he had carried. But when two souls meet again after such loss, words often fail. They looked at one another without speaking. Only tears falling in 1,000 lines. There are griefs too deep for language. There are reunions too sacred for speech. Then he awoke. The room was quiet again. The dream was gone. The woman he had just seen was once more beyond reach. And in that fragile space between dream and dawn, he wrote the poem that would live forever. A lonely grave 1,000 miles away. Nowhere to speak of this desolation. He knew then where his heart would always return. Not to the cities he had governed, not to the verses the world would remember him for, but to a quiet ridge far away where the moon falls on short pines. Year after year, on nights like this, his heart would break in the same place. What makes these lines so painful is not only their beauty. It is their truth. So often in life, we think there will be more time. More time to speak, more time to listen, more time to love properly. But death closes the ordinary door forever. And the words we never said remain within us. Perhaps remembrance is not about refusing to let go. Perhaps it is about giving love a gentler form. A quieter place. A way to stay without interrupting life. If there is someone you still carry in your heart, you do not have to force yourself to forget. You only need to give that love a peaceful place to rest. Because those we truly loved do not vanish completely. Sometimes they return in a dream. And sometimes they remain forever. In the softest part of our soul. Some loves do not end. They simply learn to rest more quietly. Qiyuan Memorial, where remembrance continues.